podium. How you guys doing? Good. Yeah? A few head nods? All right. We'll make it through. All right, call the meeting to order. Those that care to, please stand for an opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. Mr. Cameron, did you get your pants fixed?
I got my pants
All right,
fixed.
would you lead us in prayer?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day and thank you for all that you do for us. And Lord, I just pray, God, as we approach this new year, we thank you for another day and just pray to God that you would continue to guide and direct us and direct this community. Continue to show your favor upon us and just be with us in all that we do and all that we say. And glorify your name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Thank you for being here this evening. I would like to open up the meeting for citizen participation. This is anyone wishing to speak to something that is not on the agenda tonight. You have 3 minutes if you would like to approach the podium and give us your thoughts. Chief, do you want to come up and make your pitch for the helicopter now? No. All right. It was a good idea.
Approved.
Approved. All right. Seeing no one approaching the podium, we'll close citizen participation and go on to the consent agenda. This is items number 1 through 4 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Moving on to boards, commissions, and committee schedules. We have a city council meeting on January 23rd, 2024. Board of Adjustments meeting on February 1st has been canceled. We have a city council meeting. Do we also have a workshop? All right.
Yes.
So we have a first of all, I want to thank Mr. Franklin for bringing this to my attention because I forgot about it as well. We have a city council workshop on February 6th from 5 to 6, and then we will be proceeding immediately into the city council meeting from 6 until the end of the fun. We also have a planning and zoning meeting coming up on February 12th, 2024. Moving on to old business and tabled items, I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-61 by title only, please.
Motion. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving the final plat of Greenfields Estates subdivision.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from city?
Just that staff is pleased with the work that's been done. In the meantime, we're ready to recommend acceptance.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or discussion on this issue from council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-61.
Motion. Second.
A motion and a second. We will now take a roll call vote on our computers.
It's not his fault. It's messing up.
It happens. Would you like to do a voice vote?
Absolutely.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. And we're all looking at the computer. He is hitting the button
He is.
correctly.
He's
I
got
mean,
it.
The next one hopefully will work.
Okay.
All right. Moving on to item number 6 on our agenda. This is 23-62. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-62 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving the final plat of the Stone Creek Falls Phase 2 subdivision.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city?
No updates.
Any questions, comments, or discussion from council on this issue? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-62.
Motion. Second.
A motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote. see how this works. Oh, he broke it.
Touch it with your finger. That's a touch screen. See if it'll work.
That really doesn't work.
No.
I can voice vote you again.
Okay.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. Chris, do you think you can come up here and look at it and fix it?
Deflect.
Just because I don't want
pressure.
Councilmember Campbell to continue to have to do a voice vote. Sorry. Anybody have anything they want to talk about?
The great weather.
It's going to get cold. Chief, where are we looking at?
Monday, Tuesday, wind chills 20 to 25 below, single digit high. And Linda wants a street plow.
Never hurts to ask, right?
And Terry too, I'll just put her on the list. That was Tuesday basketball.
So, Tuesday, guy, thank you for asking. You know I'm going to talk about this.
There we go.
Tuesday not only canceled city council,
Yeah, you can't
but
even see the
the school was canceled, so it got moved to Wednesday night. And we played Joplin, and we won. And Alex played really, really well. Led the team in rebounds, steals, and assists. Unfortunately, he's a shooting guard, so he needs to be shooting more. But that's just part of the game. So it was a lot of fun. And overall, the team's coming together. We went 1-3 to start out, but now we've won the last 3, so we're 4-3. And team's really coming together. It's a lot of fun. 7th grade basketball for those of you keeping track. So, you scored brownie points for asking.
You literally saw me at my son's game. It's fine. No, it's fine. You were there. You were there. Did you not notice? I keep score. Every parent worth their salt keeps score.
Do you want to see the stats that I keep?
We don't.
It was 12-6. Domination. Kindergarten basketball.
Did you?
But it's not about winning at that age, right?
Yes.
Everybody gets a participation award.
Okay.
Particularly fond of Chrome, so it's under edge.
Seems like a lot of points for kindergarten.
It was a ton. We were awesome. We scored a bunch. I'm one cowboy hat away from a full Deion Sanders coach situation. Like, I have the chain, and I have all the gear and the sunglasses. I just need the cowboy hat.
Do you believe that the sunglasses would impact your ability indoors?
Did we win?
You did.
Then
You
yeah.
weren't wearing the
Then they affect it. Clearly, our team's been coached very well. We also have the tallest kid in the league on our team, which helps a lot in kindergarten. So, yeah, he's playing way down. Like, I have to call his dad every morning and be like, you need to make sure he shaves before he comes.
All projections are off.
Yeah. So, did somebody keep track of where I was at? Oh, it's good. It's up there on the screen. We're voting.
We already voted.
Ah, I was close. If his doesn't work, we'll go to voice vote for
Okay.
everybody.
We just thought it was going to be a short night.
That's what we get for thinking that.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's happening on both browsers, so I think it's an issue with code.
Voice vote all
Okay.
around. Thanks, Chris. All right. Sorry for the intermission, but we're back. Item number 7 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-63 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion
Who
and a
was the
second.
motion? Neil? Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council calling an election on the question of whether to impose an additional 3% sales tax on tangible personal property retail sales of adult use non-medical marijuana sold within the city pursuant to Article 14, Section 2.6, subsection 5 of the Missouri Constitution, calling an election to be held on April 2nd, 2024, on the proposed sales tax and authorizing and directing the city clerk to give notice to the county clerk of said election.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from staff on this issue?
No updates.
Not from our clerk, not from our attorney?
No, sir.
Very good. Questions, comments, or discussion from council on this issue? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-63. Please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We will move on to a roll call vote, voice vote.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
No.
Councilmember Gerke?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Fields?
No.
Councilmember Updike?
No.
Councilmember Gerlich?
Aye.
I have a vote count of 5-3. So ordinance passes by a vote of 5-3. Moving on to item number 8 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-64 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council proposing amendments to the city charter pertaining to the appointment, term, and minimum qualifications and duties of the city attorney, calling an election to be held on April 2nd, 2024 on the proposed amendments, authorizing and directing the city clerk to give notice to the county clerk of said election, and providing for enactment of the proposed amendments if approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city staff on this issue?
No updates.
Any? Nope. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this issue from council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-64, please.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Fields?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerlich?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerke?
Aye.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Updike?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. Item number 9 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-65 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council proposing an amendment to the city charter establishing a schedule for the election of council members to staggered 4-year terms at the general municipal election held on even years, calling an election to be held on April 2nd, 2024 on the proposed amendment, authorizing and directing the city clerk to give notice to the county clerk of said election, and providing for enactment of the proposed amendment if approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city?
No updates.
Any questions, comments, or discussion from council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-65.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Fields?
Aye.
Councilmember Updike?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerlich?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerke?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. Item number 10 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-66 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council proposing an amendment to the city charter to clarify the procedure for filling vacancies in the City Council, calling an election to be held on April 2nd, 2024 on the proposed amendment, authorizing and directing the city clerk to give notice to the county clerk of said election, and providing for enactment of the proposed amendments if approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city?
No updates.
Any questions, comments, or discussion from council on this issue? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-66.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Updike?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
Aye.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Fields?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerlich?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerke?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. Item number 11 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-67 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council proposing an amendment to the city charter establishing procedures for the passage of ordinances in a single open meeting of the City Council and allowing for the second reading of ordinances to occur as part of the consent agenda for an open council meeting, calling an election to be held on April 2nd, 2024 on the proposed amendment, authorizing and directing the city clerk to give notice to the county clerk of said election, and providing for enactment of the proposed amendment if approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city on this issue?
No updates.
Any questions, comments, or discussion from council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-67, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerlich?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Updike?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerke?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
Aye.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Fields?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. Item number 12 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-68 by title only, please.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes by a vote of 8-0, or carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council proposing an amendment to the city charter to include capital planning in the annual budget process, calling an election to be held on April 2nd, 2024 on the proposed amendment, authorizing and directing the city clerk to give notice to the county clerk of said election, and providing for enactment of the proposed amendment if approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city on this issue?
No updates.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or discussion from council? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-68, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Gerlich?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Updike?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
Aye.
Councilmember Fields?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerke?
Aye.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. Last one. You're making it. You're doing good. All right, item number 13 on our agenda. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 23-69 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council proposing an amendment to the city charter by repealing Section 10.3 pertaining to temporary permitting for public utilities, calling an election to be held on April 2nd, 2024 on the proposed amendment, authorizing and directing the city clerk to give notice to the county clerk of said election, and providing for enactment of the proposed amendment if approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Any updates from the city?
No updates.
Questions, comments, or discussion from council on this issue? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 23-69, please.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Fields?
Aye.
Councilmember Updike?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerke?
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Neal?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson?
Aye.
Councilmember Gerlich?
Aye.
Ordinance passes by a vote of 8-0. Moving on to new business, first reading of ordinances. I would entertain a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 24-01 by title only, please.
Motion. Second.
I did say please, right?
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council amending the employee handbook.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa Addington, Chief of Staff. So as you know, we do try to update the handbook throughout the year. or a little bit longer, whenever it's relevant. And we want to make sure we stay relevant and efficient in our processes. There are a few of these changes that I wanted to talk to you all about this evening. The first change is in section 403, and that has to do with vacation payouts for police and fire. This was actually a negotiated item that was brought to us during the IAFF negotiations we're going to talk about next. And what they were wanting to do is currently the maximum accrual does not match their maximum payout. And the reason for this is because we have holiday pay, 13 hours, well, public safety is 24/7. So those 104 hours are just rolled into their vacation. And what was brought to us during negotiations is the fact that by the time they reach year 4 of their tenure, that they pretty much worked all of the holidays, and they felt at that time those should be paid out, those hours, if applicable. So what we have changed is on the bands that are 4 to 9 years and 9+ years of tenure, we have matched those maximum accruals to the maximum payouts. We do understand that this creates additional liability for us. So in instances where there are large payouts, we will hold those vacancies until we can have the funding available to fill them. The next section is 406 on sick leave. Just for clarity, we added mental health to that. And section 510, it's not 509. So in your books it says 509, this will be changed for next time. It's actually 510, we added longevity pay. This is an admin policy currently. Section 606, we are clarifying the maximum comp time accrual to 24 hours. Again, currently in an admin policy. Section 8, with drug and alcohol, we did add the admin policy referencing marijuana in the workplace. We didn't want to make all these changes to the handbook since it is an ordinance in the event that things change with marijuana. Lastly, you will notice throughout the handbook there were references or changes to the compensation structure. So what we have done is we want to allow more flexibility when it comes to our more specifically classified employees. So we are actually switching to pay for performance, which is salary ranges versus the current grade and step. So just to put some visuals with this, what we have on here, and I do have it, Chris. The pay schedule currently right now looks like just some old Dakota map, correct? It's step and grade. What we are proposing is going to ranges, and each salary group will have this. Now, on the ranges, typically when you see a salary range, it's minimum, midpoint, and maximum. These are actually going to be divided into 4 quartiles, and it will show the ranges for each quartiles. We have work to do on this. We just wanted to show you what we were talking about when we say ranges. So there will be matrices, and then the actual evaluation will correspond to a percentage for true pay for performance type compensation plans. So again, there will be one for fire, police, and then the unclassifieds. So to find quartiles, this is just a Cliff Notes version. There will be more information on this, but just a Cliff Note version for this evening. These are what the quartiles mean. They actually mean something as far as tenure, experience, supervision, and we will make sure that all of those salaries will align in accordance with the quartile. The rest of the changes throughout are just grammar, miscellaneous, just we forgot an S, those kinds of little changes that we are constantly updating throughout the years. I always keep a fresh copy at my desk. We do recommend approval this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have questions from council? All right.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick comment. Lisa, great job on the work. I just want to draw attention to it that the salary schedule, for those that were not here, we actually hired a company to actually come in and evaluate our wages, if you'll recall, and there was a presentation on that. And that is where the quartiles 1 through 4 and the performance or pay for performance metrics or matrix, I guess you would say, was utilized. So we're actually kind of building off of the work that you've already authorized us to do and actually implementing that. So sometimes when you see those studies, they go on a shelf and we establish ranges. We're actually utilizing more of the recommendation that came out of that document. So just wanted you to make sure that Lisa and her team have utilized all of that resource that you provided the funding for. Thanks.
Seeing no questions, please remember this is a first read, so get with staff before the next meeting if you do have questions. Moving on to item number 15 on our agenda, I would entertain a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 24-02 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the Southern Missouri Professional Firefighters Local 152, the bargaining unit of the Republic Fire Department, and authorizing the city administrator to execute the same on behalf of the city.
Thank you, ma'am. You're still going.
I'm still here in a row. We implemented the first official firefighters union agreement, which is the Local 152 out of the International Association for Firefighters, effective February 2nd, 2021. And it is really hard to believe that it was a 3-year term and it is time to renew it. We have been negotiating with the fire union and we have established a new agreement, which is before you. We do have Devin Keeney here. He is the Executive Vice President of the Local 152, should you have any technical questions. I wanted to provide just an overview of what changed and what might be new in the agreement. So something that is new is the city is going to provide coverage to the Missouri Firefighters Critical Illness Pool for each employee. Dwayne is actually going to be presenting this at the next council meeting for an ordinance. So you'll get more information on that, but we did include it in the new agreement. Second is a change on the travel between stations. When this occurs, what we were currently doing is paying a hourly rate for them when they change stations, and that can get back into the overtime threshold, so there wasn't a consistency there. So we went to a set stipend of $50 every time they transfer. And then the third point is on minimum staffing. Due to the changes that may occur with minimum staffing, especially with a growing fire department, we have decided to roll this into an admin policy just to clarify and allow for some flexibility there. 4 is the new pay period, so what we just discussed in the handbook, as discussed, the firefighter union has agreed to pursue the new pay schedules for 1 year. And if they decide to go back to step and grade, we will revert back after 1 year. So that's why you'll see in the handbook there's still reference to step and grade. And number 5 would be the mission square. So if you'll remember, back in February of 2021, we didn't have our mission square yet. So we did put that verbiage in there to match what the handbook says. And then 6 is the vacation. So as we already discussed with the vacation accruals, the maximum will be those changes for the 10 years of 4 to 9 and 9+ bands. It is my understanding from Captain Keeney and Captain Liska that this agreement has been ratified by the Republic Fire Union, and we are asking approval. And we are happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Just a comment.
Mr. Cameron.
Mr. Mayor, Devin and Travis, I want to thank you for, this is our second contract we've worked together on, and I can't think of any part of these discussions or negotiations that have been at all where we have not worked collectively together and in good faith. And I just want to express my appreciation to you, the chief, to all the union members, to all of our firefighters that worked on this to get to this point. I think that there's just some stuff that I love about getting to talk about it in these negotiations. It's not, I wouldn't even call it negotiations. It's becoming aware of, an officer that we're asking to transfer from station 1 to station 2 is getting $20, but they're coming in on their day off for $20. No disrespect to the $20, but then they got to move all that gear back. And so we're saying, Travis really worked me over on that $50. I just thought, who would do that, come in on their day off? And so I just want to thank you, because I know this is not the case in other places, but I think that it gets missed, and we go through this. You did a great job of presenting it, and Lisa, you did all the drafting and resubmittals and working back together, and I just want to thank everybody, because it's normally not this easy. And so thank you for the work, for everyone, and your cooperation to get to this point and all the work you do. That's all.
Outstanding. Any questions? Seeing none, please remember this is a first read. Get with staff before the next meeting to answer any of your questions. Moving on to item number 16. I would entertain a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 24-03 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning classification of approximately .29 acres of real property located at 1167 North Oakwood Avenue from agricultural AG to general commercial C2.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening, Chris Tabor, Buildings Department Principal Planner. We have an application for a rezone at 1167 North Oakwood Avenue. This application was made by Karen Cowan on behalf of OR Shamrock Richards LLC to rezone approximately .29 acres currently zoned agricultural to C2 general commercial. The parcel was recently annexed into the city on October 17th, and the land is currently occupied by a single residential dwelling and is surrounded in all directions by general commercial C2 zoning. The site is in proximity to and can be served by both the city's water and sewer systems. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Chris. Questions from council on this issue?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
Just a
Franklin.
general question, and I noticed the property just north of that is already zoned commercial. What happens to that resident? Residents are still allowed to live on a C2 zoning if there's a house? How exactly does that?
So that would be like a use of the land that's grandfathered in. Someone can stay on there unless that house is vacant for 12 months. If it's vacant for 12 months, then the residential use ends.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, please remember this is a first read. Get with staff before the next meeting to answer any of your questions. Moving on to item number 17 on our agenda, I would entertain a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 24-04 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries by a vote of 8-0. Madam Clerk.
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning classification of approximately 1.08 acres of real property located at 505 West Brookfield Street from general commercial C2 to multifamily residential R3.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Patrick Ruiz, Associate Planner. The applicant, Apple Properties LLC, has applied to rezone 505 West Brookfield Street from general commercial C2 to multifamily residential R3. The property is currently vacant and consists of approximately 1.08 acres. The general land uses and zoning in the vicinity are commercial or multifamily in nature. Properties that border the subject property are either C1 local commercial or C2 general commercial. Development of the property require connecting to existing municipal water and sewer mains located near the site, and then access would need to be created off of West Brookfield Street. As shown on the map, the property contains areas of floodplain. Development of the lot will require compliance with the city's floodplain standards. And then based on these findings, staff recommends approval of the application.
Thank you, sir. Questions from council? All right, seeing none, please remember this is a first read. Get with staff before the next meeting to answer any questions you come up with. Moving on to other business, specifically resolutions. Item number 18 on our agenda. This is 24-R-02, a resolution of the City Council authorizing the city administrator to execute necessary documentation to effect the purchase of approximately .964 acres of real property located at 2493 North Commercial Avenue. I need a motion and a second to take up resolution 24-R-02.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Andrew Nelson, Assistant City Administrator. Previously, council had authorized staff to negotiate and execute a real estate contract for the purchase of this property with a not to exceed of $120,000. We worked with the property owner, which is Mr. Larry Lipscomb and his family, and the purchase price was agreed at $111,310.60. This is right-of-way acquisition, and it's for the purpose of the extension from the new signal at Stone Creek over to Commercial Avenue. If you've been through there, you'll notice that the two access points that currently serve the MFA fueling station have been closed. This provides the access from that general vicinity back over to the new signalized intersection. So staff is recommending approval.
questions on this resolution for Mr. Nelson? Seeing none, and as this is a resolution, I can call it immediately for a vote, which is what I will do. All those in favor of Resolution 24-R-02, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution carries by a vote of 8-0. Moving on to item number 19 on our agenda, this is 24-R-03, a resolution of the City Council approving a preliminary plat for Walker Heights, a residential subdivision consisting of approximately 40.46 acres located at 7217 West Farm Road 182. I need a motion and a second to take up Resolution 24-R-03.
Motion. Second.
Mr. Tabor.
Good evening again. Oak Hills LLC is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for Walker Heights. It consists of 102 lots and is across 40 acres. You probably remember this property because it came up previously in October for an annexation and in December for a rezone from agricultural to R1M. So currently it is R1M and the preliminary plat is proposing 102 lots of that zoning density. There are 5 new roads to be constructed in the preliminary plat, as well as a continuation of 2 existing roads, one from Iron Gate to the west and the other from Highland Meadows to the north. One new connection will be made from Farm Road 182. A looped water system will be provided and will utilize connections to the north and west. Wastewater will flow to the Schuler Creek lift station and then on to the wastewater treatment plant. The water system, named lift station, and wastewater treatment facility have capacity to serve the intended use. There are no floodplain or sinkholes on this site. 2 stormwater detention basins are proposed, one in the southwest and one in the southeast of the property. The stormwater would exit the basins south across Farm Road 182. The actual design and placement of all this infrastructure will be reviewed during the infrastructure permitting process. Staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat.
You found 40 acres in southwest Missouri that didn't have a sinkhole on it? Huh. Are we sure? Like, huh.
Yeah, so you need to sit on it. It's gold.
Okay. No, sorry. That was a kind of a real question. Do we have any real questions from council on this issue? All right, seeing none, and as this is a resolution, I can call it immediately for a vote, which is what I will do. All those in favor of 24-R-03, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution passes by a vote of 8-0. You want to talk for a while?
Not that long.
All right, well, we've heard that before.
Yeah. Ouch. Ouch.
Hey, I'm a short
Clint,
guy.
do you have anything to say with that?
That you talk too much?
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. I was just checking.
I've had you over to the house.
I was gonna say
You took the whole conversation. Really strangled it.
you're a sore loser.
Yeah, that's true.
Happy New Year. First and foremost, I say this a lot, but when we go through agendas and we're sitting here on the second read, it looks like there's not a lot of discussion to that bill. I'm sitting here going through all those bills and thinking the months and the work that went into drafting and crafting and putting all that together, and staff discussions, and then Laura and Megan, our city attorney, that have put in hours, days into the marijuana ballot, and even the negotiations on the contracts, the things that people were writing, the handbooks. We just go through those like they're just pieces of paper. There's just a lot of work that goes into putting this packet together, and I don't know if there's a way to really justify or explain all the appreciation I have for how you have presented this to get it ready for discussion and additional conversation, at least to be presented to this council. So Megan, Laura, Lisa, for the handbook, I think that what I love about the handbook amendments, I know that I've worked for cities or seen cities that they won't change them for 10 years. And you have something for us that's fresh and relevant, that keeps it up to date for the employees, that you're looking out for it. I love the fact that we're adding the mental health element to that. I think that that's something that's critical, and I think that's something that you've worked very hard on through our employee assistance program. So I thank you for that. Hello.
Mr. Wilson has the best ringtone. I swear, I love that. I need to find that.
Give them our best. Ask them. I'll tell,
Hey, is it your mom calling, Mr. Wilson?
Mom, that is not my phone going off. Just letting you know. I also want to thank this council. Tuesday night was obviously, I mean, when we're adjusting council meetings to the community, for those that came out tonight, when you're adjusting your calendar, it's not for us to, we don't want to be having ballot measure questions changed to a different night, but it was basically intentional for the weather, or not intentional, but it was intended to help us with the weather. So, and it actually turned out bad. Looks like we dodged the bullet, but tomorrow it's coming. With that, Chief, I do have a question about warming stations. We're getting ready to go into a pretty nasty cold spell. Our policy is with our public facilities, I believe, is that our parks building, that if there was a power outage or something where there was a down area of town, that we do open our facilities in the parks. Is that accurate?
Parks is the only one we have, but it does not have a generator, so during a power outage, prolonged power outage.
But that would be something that we'd release to our media outlets if that was the case. But of course, if you have no power, it might be hard to see. But either way, as we're going through that, I guess we'll just continue to monitor how things are, and it's pretty nasty. It's going to be pretty nasty, so I love it. So, yeah, nothing like that. I want to bring attention to January 23rd. So I'm not going to go into a long diatribe about the wastewater. We've talked about wastewater treatment for what, 5, 6, 7 years now. And we're into phase 3 of the last part of what I would consider the heavy lifting, the part where the mayor asked me what keeps me up at night. The work session will be on what is left on the wastewater plant, the issuing of the notice to bid to proceed. But there are a lot of implications to that we want. I mean, and this is what I'd say: if those that are in their seats, because there's votes that are going to be taken prior to the April election, because we have to meet deadlines. But I would encourage you, if you're interested whatsoever, if you're running for office in those capacities, that you need to be here to understand the history of this project. Because we are now down to that last part that we have committed to, and it's either we get additional funding, or we're going to have to fund this through rates and an extension of the capital improvement sales tax. And so Andrew's going to be bringing that presentation to you. I would encourage you to read up on everything that we presented. He's going to be having a letter and documentation for you just to follow up on it. And the reason why is because this project has transcended several elected bodies. And when you have changing faces and they don't understand what that is, and people are saying our rates went up this much, we've been communicating that they're likely to go up again and even more to pay for this. It's not because the project got smaller, but it's important that we have a work session. We will again record it, but the urgency of the conversation, the weight of the conversation, warrants people to watch this even more, and those that are interested to be here for that work session. Again, it'll be recorded, so it'll be a place or a reference. We will continue to work with the legislature as we promised we would, but we're to the point that we actually have to proceed to some level on making some decisions ahead of the decision of whether we get funded at the state level additionally. So I would encourage everyone to be out there, and I would say, my last comment is, it is a new year, which means it is a new legislative session. And I will tell you that I mentioned it at the last council meeting, Senate Bill 979. I've had numerous phone calls, messages regarding this bill. And I thank you for allowing me to, I guess you could say, as the mayor says, run point, because there's a number of things that myself and the city attorney and staff are working on that we need to make sure that we handle this right. Springfield has been very open to amending the bill. However, our situation related to the bill is very unique because we have a joint boundary agreement and settlement agreement with the city of Springfield. We're also currently, as you may or may not be aware, tied in what we're considered, I guess, is a joint litigation.
A third party.
A third party litigation, or third party in the litigation regarding to that boundary agreement with the developer that wanted to connect to our utilities, has questioned the validity of that agreement. So the bill brings into a lot of questions the way it was introduced, our awareness to the bill, naturally expressing our opposition to the bill as it was, and I will continue to evaluate, monitor that, and to work with our elected officials and Springfield officials. And there's a lot in the region that have expressed concern. I appreciate all the calls asking where to go with it and how to handle that, but I think that the way we've been handling it is to work with and try to engage Springfield to make changes, or just provide some level of clarity that says this is the specific area where it's going. And we'll continue to do that. If not, we'll continue to work on the bill at the legislative level. And with that, it's the best way I can describe it. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding that. But again, I would just ask that you let us do our part, because there is pending litigation, or there is ongoing litigation, and those messages need to be coordinated as to how we approach the bill in a in a diplomatic manner. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Reports from council. Mr. Franklin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be short. For anyone that didn't get a chance to watch the P&Z video again, I love the end of that and having that additional on that P&Z with the P&Z 101. I think that's what we're calling it. So I really appreciate that. It was a great one again on the duty of the commission. I'm appreciative of everyone that signed up for the election. And last thing I've got is stay warm. I know it's cold, and I appreciate everyone at the City of Republic that's working outside, whether it be the police officers, the sewer, water, just everyone that's working on our behalf. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Updike?
Especially we want to don't forget about our pets. I know it's going to be terribly cold. I mean, I'm a huge pet lover. I've got 5 dogs. So make sure your pets stay warm. Bring them inside.
Thank you, sir. Well put. Yes, sir.
I also love Chris's pets. The connection between 174 and 60 via west. I've talked to quite a few now, actually, residents, because it's nothing but residential between those two big streets. There are semi trucks going down those streets connecting the two, not knowing the exactly proper way to try to get something done about that. I just know that when I've asked these residents, how often are you guys seeing semi trucks come down this tiny little 2-lane road? The answer is all the time, and that's not cool. We have Maine, that's a connector there, and then obviously at one point 60 and 174 come together. They don't need to be cutting down a exclusively residential neighborhood, and I'm wondering if there are steps. You ready to talk about it? Are there steps we can take? You go now.
Yes.
Awesome. I like it concise, man. Opposite of your boss.
Really noted. More I should have said.
The short answer is yes, and it's not uncommon for us to get some complaints like that. So what we've done in the past, we have certain signage that we put up. Either it says local traffic only, no commercial traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take that location from you, and we'll go take a look at it. And
cool.
Beyond that, if it continues, then it becomes more of like an enforcement issue, and we can work with the PD on that as well.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Couple things. First off, Mr. Cameron, thank you for heading point on SB 979 for the citizens. So thank you for that. I want to point out on the administrator's report, thank you for the report, but I just want to bring light to the citizen compliment for Republic PD. May I read it?
Please.
Okay. On December 17th, Republic officers responded to a death investigation. A family member of the deceased called the police department to express his gratitude for the officers' response. The family member said that the officers were wonderful and kind and appreciated the professionalism. And obviously during those times, that is super, super important. But I also want to point out that how important that I feel like our police department is viewed by our citizens. And I have family and friends that have been pulled over by the department, and hear them say how kind the officers are, regardless of the outcome, it just speaks volume for the leadership. So Major Burke and Chief Sells, thank you for that, and just keep it up.
Excellent. Anyone else? Seeing nothing else, we are at the end of the agenda. It is my opportunity to say something, and I'm going to keep it short as well.